You're listening to the Ringer NBA show presented by FanDuel. America's #1 sportsbook is the best place to bet on the NBA because not only does FanDuel have all your favorite player props, but now you can even check out stats and recent performance trends right in the app before you make your picks. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today to get in on the action. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Hello and welcome to Group Chat. I am Justin Verrier, and joining me, Rob Mahoney, Big Woz. Woz, it looks like you fixed your smoke detector. We're all very pleased.
Oh, well, it was a one-day thing. I thought it was my carbon monoxide joint, which is like electrically built in and not like some battery you can buy. But it ended up being the other one, which was battery situated, and I got it fixed.
But you are alive. You survived fires and potential carbon monoxide poisoning.
I am alive. I'm good. People dealt with some beeping. Life goes on.
What's funny is I remember hearing the beeping during the podcast, but when you're in the flow, you don't really get caught up in those things. If you listen back, it's pretty prominent. So
we keep moving though. We put one foot in front of the other. It's playoff time. We have no choice but to persist.
That's right. Unfortunately, the Lakers will not be persisting past this point. So in this game in which the Wolves closed out the series against the Lakers, we had 40 missed three-pointers from the Timberwolves. We had Rudy Gobert looking like Wilt Chamberlain, and we had Julius Randle looking like one of the best playoff closeout guys in crunch time on a court with Luka Doncic, with Anthony Edwards, with LeBron James. Rob, what the hell did we just watch?
It's all very normal stuff. And somehow this was the less weird game of the two weird games we had tonight. But credit to the Wolves, who just ultimately, Rudy Gobert in particular, broke the Lakers. He literally broke their formula. He broke the series open, completely changed this game with his rebounding in particular, but also just his ability to catch and finish, which had been in a disastrous state over the first 4 games of this series. And honestly, it felt like, the Lakers made their big, much ballyhooed, much anticipated lineup change as far as their starters go, playing the only 5 guys that JJ Redick was comfortable playing in game 4 to begin with as starters in game 5. It sure felt like Minnesota was ready for it. It sure felt like they had film sessions, team meetings about getting Rudy the ball in specific spots, and most importantly, him being positioned to just clean up 9 offensive rebounds in this game. And most frustratingly, not a single Laker putting a body on him at any point outside of, I would say, maybe a 2-minute stretch in the second quarter where they were actually physical. And outside of that, they seem pretty content to just let this happen.
Yeah, generally speaking, when teams go small, right, the idea is that you're going to spread the opposing team's defense out and, create driving lanes for yourself. It's this idea, I'm going smaller, I'm going to be better in space, I'm going to be quicker to the punch than my opponent is. However, the Lakers not only went small and got bludgeoned and bruised on the block, and on the boards, they could not dribble past anybody. So they were small with all of the disadvantages and pretty much none of the advantages. Literally, Minnesota was like, we have no problem switching our big guys onto your wings and keeping our defensive shape. They played them straight up. They never had to contort themselves into weird pretzels because they were in a bind guarding the Lakers. They were like, no, we can guard these guys just fine. We never spring any major leaks. We never have to panic and put our guys in horrible rotational spots. And on the other end, we get to enjoy all of the blessings and advantages that come with being way bigger, way stronger than your opponent. So, yeah, it was just a terrible matchup for the Lakers, and they got exposed.
There's a lot of desperate acts from the Lakers in this game.
Oh my God.
Starting first and foremost with the pregame press conference from JJ Redick, where he seemed on edge, not only to the assembled media, but even it seemed like in the TNT like separate meeting they have, like even Reggie Miller was like, yeah, this guy, I had to tell him to like kind of calm down a little bit. We got Maxi Kleber out of nowhere. First like time he was even eligible to be on a court since January 25th. He gets more minutes than Jackson Hayes, the starter, practically since the Luka trade there. But they were practically like selling out on trying to stop the drive so much that they were allowing the Wolves to take all these threes. I guess that was the better option when they were missing so many, but then it just let Rudy Gobert get whatever he wanted down in the paint. And so it just seemed like they had so many disadvantages here. They were just trying whatever they could in order to dig themselves out. But here they are losing a game that they probably should have won considering how poorly the Wolves played throughout.
Totally. I mean, it was a really competitive game down the stretch in terms of the margin. It just never really felt that way because for the bulk of the game, Minnesota was getting basically any open three it could want. And, you know, guys like Dante DiVincenzo, guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker were not hitting at all. Anthony Edwards, I've been pretty resistant to the idea that Ant was taking too many threes in the regular season. There is zero doubt he was settling for way too many bad threes here during some critical stretches of this game. They managed their way around that because of the offensive rebounding. They managed their way around that because they were getting enough stops. And they managed their way around that because Julius Randle was getting every crucial bucket off of a drive, off of self-created like isolation offense. I never expected to be here, but I am a Julius Randle believer. Like, this was an incredible series for Julius as a playoff performer, guarding LeBron, guarding Luka, holding up in switches, holding up in space, creating in a way that never really felt like he was off the rails. Or if it did, it would at least be while he was being aggressive going downhill, right? Like he was driving and maybe got a little off balance. But ultimately in a game like this where you need that sort of downhill momentum, that's not a bad thing. That certainly beats the alternative of Ant taking, and missing his 12th three of the night.
So to me, Ant had a bad quote unquote game. I don't necessarily see it that way, especially when you look at that second quarter where the Wolves, put together this nice double-digit margin.
Yeah.
The entire point of telegraphing the most basic freaking double team God has ever invented is that you have absolutely zero confidence that any of your guys could stay in front of this dude one-on-one. So in order to even avoid the situation, when I talk about the pretzel that the Lakers weren't forcing upon Minnesota, that's exactly what the Lakers were doing on defense. They were literally telegraphing these hapless-ass double teams to Anthony Edwards on the ball. Then less than 3 passes later, they were ending in layups when they weren't ending in outright threes. And, I think the game ultimately came down to the fact that the Lakers could do nothing going downhill. Like, towards the end of the game, LeBron wanted no parts of Rudy Gobert in the paint. He got nothing. No shots in the paint. Same for Luka. And the Wolves, Julius Randle was living in the paint. And even on that Mike Conley, basically dagger three, it's Ant Edwards on the ball. He forces this extreme amount of help by the basket from Austin Reaves and just sprays it out to a guy for a wide open shot. Austin Reaves was barely within 4 feet of this guy when he let go of the ball. So even if Ant's not scoring, efficiently on his own, it's him that's dictating the terms of what the Lakers can even try to do on defense.
Yeah, it was a real tale of two halves, I guess. At first, he was just making the right plays because they were sending doubles. He was hitting wide open shooters. They were just missing.
Yeah.
Toward the end of the game, when Luka was clearly hobbled, he obviously had a back issue. Dante DiVincenzo kind of struck him what seemed to be like on the neck region, but that somehow that
shoulder.
Kind of tweaked his back. Didn't seem like even LeBron and JJ Redick were surprised when he came out after halftime. It seemed like Edwards was reticent to attack against him in the second half and was setting for a lot of threes. But you saw as soon as they got into the paint how things opened up. Randle, after those I think it was 3 offensive rebounds, called for the ball against Reaves, takes them, all of a sudden bucket. And then there was another play where Ant did drive against Luka, caught Conley in the corner for the open 3. It's just that's when things started to flow there. But it just kind of almost underlined how easy things were for the Wolves if they could just get a little of something. The Lakers just didn't have any answers, no matter where they were looking.
Well, just how easy it was if they could get a shot on the rim, because then Rudy was cleaning everything up. Again, it's like all of these decision-making quirks are much more palatable when you're rebounding everything and getting second and third and fourth and fifth chances, frankly, on some of these possessions where the various Wolves were just digging it out of the dirt. Long rebounds, short rebounds, it didn't really matter at all. Just a no-show from the Lakers in that particular regard. And this was something we kind of talked about a bit down the stretch of the regular season with the Lakers' size, that for all the size that they have in kind of having a lot of power forward shaped bodies in their lineup, it's kind of fake size. Like it didn't manifest as you mentioned, was in terms of you're not beating people up inside, you're not crushing people on the glass. Like it maybe made you more switchable, where you can handle different kinds of pick and roll coverages and things like that. But ultimately, they don't play like a big team. And they certainly didn't feel like it once Luka was really slowed down, and I think did about as much as a person can do when hobbled with a back injury, and was creating a fair bit and taking contact and trying to be like a full participant in this game. But by that point, Minnesota had already kind of set the tone, and Luka, frankly, can't do everything.
If you had told me after the Luka trade that this was how the Lakers season ended, I would probably be like, oh, that probably makes sense. They didn't go out and get a center. They were trying to just figure this out on the fly. We didn't know that Reaves would play this well at the end of the regular season. Obviously didn't acquit himself too well in this game, and did okay throughout this postseason. But if you just told me first round series against a tough opponent, I believe it. Waz, do you think we talked ourselves into the Lakers just because they had such immediate success?
Absolutely did. When the trade was made, uniformly, everything you read, everything you listened to, everything you watched on TV was like, this was a trade made for the future, for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
The roster is now extremely imbalanced, and the Lakers are not materially better, even if we think more highly of Luka than we do Anthony Edwards. This is what all of us said. And then in the regular season, this might be better than we thought it was. And we talked we fool ourselves with the little number next to the seed, next to the team name. It's like, oh, they're the third seed. So they're clearly materially better than the Wolves, when we knew, obviously, from stuff like point differential, just watching the Wolves down the stretch, that they were not a meaningfully better team than Minnesota. I just thought they'd be able to get by on guile, and Minnesota just traditionally being a knuckleheaded, non-executing ass bunch. But, this goes to shows that playoff experience actually matters, and Minnesota was just executing on a much higher level than they have in previous postseason, just being way less boneheaded, I think. But just look at their they were playing Moxie Kleber. This is nuts. Okay.
I love that he came in and does what Maxey does, with all due respect, every time he plays, which is he is an ostensible stretch five. Will catch at the 3-point line, won't shoot it. Just we'll pass it up, reset with 4 seconds left on the shot clock. Let's just keep it moving. This is the responsible thing to do, I guess. I was baffled that he was out there, but as we mentioned, it speaks to the Lakers' desperation and trying to find bodies that could be viable in this game. And Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, they actually got a little bit more burn tonight. You can see why they were kind of questionable in the rotation to begin with, and why JJ Redick basically tried to excise them when push came to shove in Game 4. Ultimately, this isn't a team yet. And this is kind of why we had to be sold on them down the stretch of the season. They don't have a fully conceived roster that makes sense. They were leaning on Jackson Hayes as a propped up starting center when he is not that. Not even really a rotation level center on most teams, if we're being honest, but they were able to get by because they have Luka, because they have LeBron. And now we'll see kind of how they get by when they can actually build this team in the image of what it's going to be, which is a Luka-led team at the end of the day, and one that also features LeBron very heavily, but in a variety of roles.
So I want to ask you guys, related to the trade and the expectations, on the constantly evolving, is Nico Harrison a complete idiot who shouldn't be allowed to have the job of dog catcher?
He's the electric fence guy.
He might trade your dog. I wouldn't let him catch or walk my dog in any capacity.
What grade would you give Luka Doncic in this series?
Defensively, quite poor, I would say, overall for the series.
I would say offensively, the Wolves were never really that worried about him. But their defense never behaved as if they were.
This is true. The Wolves are uniquely suited to challenge Luka in that way, especially when he's not playing his best basketball. Like, he just was not at the level that he was in last year's Western Conference Finals, really at any point in this series. He had some hot shooting stretches. He was successful in some stretches relative to others, but like Jaden McDaniels, I think, did a really great job up until tonight when he was in foul trouble hell for basically the whole game.
Yeah.
And frankly, irresponsibly. Like, I think some of that was Luka baiting him into stuff, but some of it was just Jaden overrunning and swiping at things he shouldn't have been doing. But then in comes Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's right in Luka's jersey and doing a really good job. I would say grade-wise for Luka, I would give him probably like a B. I think the creation is still super high level. I think the shot making is still elite. The defense was not there. Ultimately, as far as like being good enough to carry a cohesive playoff level offense, he just didn't really hit that gear in this series.
Yeah, what's the scale? Like, are we comparing it to past Luka performances
Yes.
or just like normal people? Because against normal people, he had 37, he had 38. Like, he still he had that one shot where he just kind of took I think it was Jaden McDaniels like in the paint and scored on him on a step back with like what seemed like a just no mobility whatsoever. And so he could still do that, but overall, yeah, like B- or so. He wasn't dynamic enough in order to overcome so many of the issues that we talked about with the Lakers. And they were kind of banking on him doing everything. That's what we talked about even going into this series. Like, oh, Luka is the trump card. If he's going to be the best player in this series, if he could make magic happen, then maybe. But the Wolves had so many different advantages. And like, you saw this one bear out with the size one. And we should probably talk about Rudy Gobert because like in the midst of this game, I was wondering where I should get Rudy Gobert's face tattooed on my body because this guy is just on another fucking level. Was this his best playoff game of his life?
This was
offensively.
This was the most dominant offensive game he's ever had, period.
Was he
I would say.
dominant on offense, guys? Like,
yes.
He dunked everything in sight. Like, I mean, he wasn't Iverson out there like just like hitting step backs, but like he's a monster.
He had 27 in the first quarter. He was scoring as much as Luka and LeBron combined.
He was dominant on the offensive boards.
Wait, what was the dominant on the what boards?
Offensive boards.
Oh, those.
He was.
Yeah.
And he deserves a lot of love for that. He created absolutely zero offense for himself.
And he dominated the game while not creating any offense. I don't know what to tell you. That's what happened.
Dude, he could barely catch the ball half the time. So if he got this far, this is a fucking
grading on a curve.
He had 27 and 9 offensive rebounds. Like, that's a dominant game.
Listen, he was the beneficiary of a bunch of assisted dunks, y'all. Like, I'm sorry, a 7'3" guy catching and dunking is not offensive dominance, in my opinion. Like, with nobody on him. Okay?
His ability to do that.
He's not dunking on people, guys.
I hear you.
Wide open dunks.
You're not wrong, but his ability to catch and finish in that way.
So catching the ball is what
that's a huge step. This dude cannot catch the ball.
I don't know, like, again, that's what JJ Redick dared him to do. And he did it. Like,
fair enough.
You know, I would love to join you here, but even I can't because
look.
He was awesome.
He had a great Rudy Gobert game, but for me to say this guy was dominating on offense, I think is a bit, much for me.
Someone's snacking on freedom fries over there and just can't even appreciate the brilliance of our Frenchman.
Yeah, Woz, what can you tell us about the fall of Saigon?
Bro. So interesting. A lot of times we will try to prop up these regimes that we think like, all right, they'll be favorable to our sort of aims and demands or whatever. But what ends up happening is just a dependency. And the second we get out of there, the second we're not doing everything for them, it just completely collapses. And, the Viet Cong just went in there. Those guys actually believed in their cause. And they actually felt like they were fighting for somebody and just kicked these South Vietnamese guys' asses up and down the battlefield and culminating in their, ultimate defeat.
So the Viet Cong are the Wolves.
Why are you still going?
and our dependency as a media apparatus on the Lakers. Like, I'm starting to see the parallels here. Also, if you think this is far afield, I guarantee you it is not. Because Waz's home viewing experience is apparently watching this game in real time with a podcast overlaid talking about the fall of Saigon. Waz, what are you doing?
Yes, literally, I'm like, instead of listening to Reggie Miller, who, at times I can enjoy, I was like, no, I really,
bad tonight.
because I think it was like the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. And so, just the
Checks out.
history
I didn't have that
buff
one
in
on my calendar, I'll be honest.
me.
Do you still call it Ho Chi Minh City or are you still calling it Saigon?
No, we could call it Saigon. It's all good. I think the relations have been patched up between Vietnam and the West enough that we can call it Saigon and keep it pushing.
What about Myanmar? Are you calling it Burma or?
Jesus Christ! just keep moving. We're not touching that.
Well, I'll say this: I think Mark Williams, former in air quotes Lakers center, would appreciate Rudy Gobert's performance. He sent out a very coy smiley face immediately after this one, which I have to say was a nice touch on things. But if they had him, things might have looked differently. I was on the side when the trade got rescinded. You didn't want to blow your powder on a guy who had some deficiencies. Yes, he was younger, could grow with the team, but we talked at length about, defensively, injury history, yada, yada, yada. Definitely could have used them tonight.
In some ways, yes. Mark Williams, also not a good pick and roll defender. And if he had been on the floor, they would have put him through the blender all night. And I think he would have been in foul trouble
just a large man
all night.
Just like anyone who over 7 feet.
That would certainly help, especially to Waz's point. A lot of these possessions were just like, can you get Rudy Gobert the ball with his arms above his head where no other Laker can reach him? And yeah, like that strategy would have been at least challenged, if not foiled.
I don't know, man. Watching the playoffs this year, watching the work that Zubac is doing, obviously Jokic, we know. I think having a serviceable center is like really important. And like Draymond Green's ability to play center credibly, like there's a credibility to his defense, like all comers. He's going to guard these guys on an island, not need a crazy amount of help, and be able to like switch out on the guard. Like this is nuts, right? Like what he's doing. I think having credible play at the center position is like, as we spent a decade basically poo-pooing the entire existence of these guys, these big men. And I'm more convinced now than ever that man, it's about as crucial outside of having a guy who can create with the ball, man. You need a big man who can actually stand up to scrutiny in the postseason. Like, I'm truly a believer in that, man.
We're so back. I love it.
We are. The bigs are back.
The bigs are back. But, Justin, for the Lakers, how do they get such a big man? Like, what are even the avenues for them going forward in terms of if you're going to replace Jackson Hayes? I think that's the natural avenue to try to improve this roster, to make it more Luka friendly, to make it more balanced. But what do you actually do to get those players?
Well, before we flip to the Lakers offseason, can we take a second to appreciate Julius Randle just a little bit more here?
I would love to.
I'm just baffled because even in the first half of the season, we got bad Julius Randle. And then something happened when he came back from injury. He just found the most streamlined version of himself, which is one thing. But then translated that immediately to the postseason after having just not even a checkered postseason pass, just like a fairly awful run in the postseason with the Knicks. The fact that he was the steady hand so often in this series is a goddamn miracle. And honestly, it portends so well going forward because it does feel like the Wolves have the safeguards in place that you need around Ant when you need them. Am I wrong? It feels like the Wolves are like maybe on the precipice of something potentially pretty special in these postseasons.
Could be.
I'm gonna pump the brakes just a little bit. Like you will notice if you go back and watch the tape, these drives were coming up against Austin Reaves and Luka Doncic a lot of the times. Like, look, you beat the man that's put in front of you, and he deserves love for that. But I think as the playoffs go on, there's gonna be a little bit more resistance to the strengths of Julius Randle. But I like that you use the word streamline because he's just got no fat to his game right now. He's like, I know the matchups. I can completely dominate. And I shouldn't say that. Like, he did do his thing against LeBron on some big buckets, too. I don't want to pretend like it was all chumps, but, like, the Lakers presented a lot of chumps for him to feast on. And when he was creating advantages and the Lakers sent extra help, he's whipping it out as fast as possible. And he's guarding the hell out of people. Like you mentioned at the top of the show, Justin, like that to me is like just making his shot diet so much more nutritious and healthy and giving you the effort and the physicality on defense and on the boards. Like, he deserves his flowers for that.
I think the effort is not a small part of that. And that's where, earlier in the season, especially on defense, you could spot so many plays in routine regular season games where he's just kind of standing on the weak side, kind of on the perimeter, not really guarding anybody. Even in crunch time of some kind of closeout games that the Wolves were trying to push and finish, just like was not locked in. Then you see him in a game like this, and he's so physical, and he's flying around the court, he's going after loose balls, and it's just a completely different player to the point that on balance, and I say this not as an insult to this counterpoint, but as strictly praise for Julius Randle, I think there's a reasonable argument that he just straight up outplayed LeBron in this series.
Yes.
Like he may have made more impactful plays than LeBron James in a playoff series. That's fucking insane. Just like for us to get to that point with Julius Randle, and it's such a high bar, even with LeBron in, I think relatively mortal form by the end of this series at the end of the day, but still making plays on both sides of the ball, still so effective roundly. And there's Julius Randle matching him blow for blow, going one-on-one against LeBron, coming up with all these enormous momentum-shifting plays in a closeout game against the Lakers in LA. That's an insane turn of events.
Watching the end of the game, again, I've watched so many LeBron playoff games during the broadcast. I think it was Harlan who was like, this man has played more postseason basketball than anybody in the history of the NBA. And just LeBron's he's just straight up not doing the Julius Randle thing. Matchup hunting, putting his nose down and getting in the paint, getting fouled, living at the free throw line. Like, the old LeBron, man, or even I would say like 2020, bubble LeBron, was still a threat one-on-one against any matchup, any team. You could count on him giving defenses problems and having to be accounted for. This LeBron is just like, he's settling for jump shots. He's like, even when he gets like Nickeil Alexander-Walker on him, he's not like backing this guy down and putting him under the rim. Like he's selling for step backs against that guy. It's just, the guy's 40 years old. Like at a certain point, it is what it is. But like watching Randle and Ant be like, you know what? When we desperately need things, we're going to go downhill. And LeBron just being like, I guess I got to go for a step back three on a Rudy Gobert switch. Like that's just, to me, that's emblematic of what the difference was in this series.
This episode is brought to you by Degree Original Cool Rush Deodorant. So remember last year when people got really mad when Degree changed their Cool Rush formula? One dude even started a petition. Well, guess what? Degree listened, admitted they messed up, and are bringing the original Cool Rush scent back. You've got to love when a brand can own its mistakes. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. Grab some and find out why it's been the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. The original Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us. The LeBron Randle comp is applicable because in a lot of ways, LeBron has aged into looking more like Randle, where a lot of it is getting to where he wants to go based on old man strength and just bullying teams. And you really can't bully the Wolves to a certain extent, especially Randle, especially McDaniels. There's just so many long, big bodies out there. It's just hard to get where you want to go. So he had to play an ancillary role, which is just, not what he's used to at this point. I think the question as we kind of flipped to the offseason here is like, what's LeBron going to be now in age 41? And like, what might they need to do in order to maybe safeguard against that? Like, obviously, Luka, if he decides long term he wants to be there, LeBron, Reaves, there's stuff in place. I guess the question is it just the center? Do they need anything more in addition to that one piece? Like, Rob, if we're assembling our war room here yet again.
Oh, we're back.
Like, yeah, we're back. We're back in the war room, but we're different people now. I'm Palinka. Well,
Saigon has fallen.
We all have green hats with the stars on them here. Who are we targeting here, or what are we targeting? Is probably the bigger question.
I think you absolutely need a big. So there are multiple needs, but you start with the size that just absolutely wrecked the Lakers in a game like this. And it doesn't need to be a dominant player. It just needs to be one who can withstand some playoff scrutiny and who can make you competitive on the boards and can guard some of these other really high level bigs on occasion. I think for that, you're like, maybe this is foolish of me in a world where the Lakers just kind of wind up with Luka Doncic, but there's certain players who are kind of in the ether that I don't think are realistic for what the Lakers have to offer. And that's guys like Walker Kessler, Onyeka Okongwu. Like, I think they're probably a little outside of the Lakers' range. And so realistically, the guys you're talking about, you want someone who's a lob threat who can play with Luka. You want someone who can protect the rim. You want someone who can clean the glass. Like, Luka's former teammate Daniel Gafford is sitting right there. I think you could plausibly go get him. Nick Claxton, also featured in trade conversations all the time. A little bit of a different vibe, not as big a body, but more switchable than some of the other bigs you might get, and so allows you to lean into that style if you want to. I also wouldn't hate if they kind of leaned in a different way, maybe a more Maxi Kleber adjacent direction, and like a Kelly Olynyk kind of player could be really good for them. I think that could be a really good fit.
I don't think it's a good fit for the defense that I just watched.
Well, no, that part not.
Yeah, I think they.
But this was an offensive struggle too. Like the Lakers honestly had problems on both sides of the ball.
So to me, I think a lot of your problems get solved if Luka is able to reach his previous form.
Yes.
Which I personally think is still in question. Like, I know it's just like, they keep saying he's 26. I'm like, all right, cool. He don't look it. He doesn't move like he's 26.
He's coming back off a weird stilted season, off an injury, off of a stomach illness. Like,
okay.
I'm just
all right.
All right, Nico, relax.
I just like to see it. I would just like to see it. I think if Luka is an MVP candidate, you can go with these sort of defensive oriented kind of pieces because Luka's going to take care of the offense because he can be so dominant. If he's not, then I think we're having a moot conversation.
Well, sure.
They're just so far talent-wise from being the kind of championship team that, the Lakers and their fans expect to be if this guy's not an MVP candidate. Because the bottom line is LeBron's going to be 41 years old. At a certain point, it's like, yeah, he could probably be as good as Aaron Gordon is, for the Denver Nuggets. And people might say, oh, that's an insult. Like, bro, he's not creating offense anymore. He's not dominating possession. You're not just like, yo, here, LeBron, take me home. Like, here's the ball, take us home. He's just not going to do that. He's going to be really good at a bunch of shit, but he's not going to dominate your offense. LeBron by himself is not, the sort of roadmap to offensive efficiency the way that we've known him to be for the bulk of his career. So who does that have to be? That has to be Luka. And around him, because we know of his deficiencies, they got to get guys that can really be physical, that are athletic, and can guard people. That's what they need.
Can I be a guy just asking questions on a podcast for a second?
Sure.
Always.
Are we 1,000% sure that LeBron is going to be a Laker next year? Like, are we 1,000% sure he's going to opt in? Are we 1,000% sure he's going to re-sign with the team? Like, I'm just saying we're all taking it as a point of fact that he's going to be there and they're going to kind of continue to build this project with him and Luka. That ends whenever LeBron says it does. And we haven't had any indication that he's leaning that way, but I'm just saying, like, there's a decision up in the air that's in his court that he gets to decide what happens.
Well, he was shocked when he was at dinner that this trade went down.
He was.
Because
he hadn't heard anything about it.
No whispers whatsoever. He was caught off guard.
From the scuttlebutt that I've heard, this is that LeBron is signing an extension.
I believe it.
In the offseason with the Lakers.
This seems like overwhelmingly what will happen. I'm just saying, like, I'm seeing him on the cap sheet, not locked in because he has this option.
Here's the question. What's the other option? I think if we can come up with something that made sense, perhaps.
I can't.
But the only thing on the board, it's like the hypothetical Steph reunion. And I don't know, that just got really muddy with Jimmy there. So
I don't have an alternative to pitch you.
No. I think LeBron just straight up, his priority is just getting paid. So I think the Lakers are gonna hey man. I think the Lakers are gonna pay him. And that's just going to be that.
Here's the
Now,
question. Would he take a pay cut?
that's what I'm saying. Is LeBron a max player still?
No, but that's throughout his
I don't
entire
feel like the guy
journey.
that I watched tonight was a max player.
No, but he's been adamant not to do so, if only for the precedent it sets for other players behind him.
Yeah.
And because he wants to make the most as he can, because he deserves it.
Absolutely.
I would be shocked if he did, but I think that is something that should be broached at the very least. It's a pretty fair conversation to have.
I think LeBron is still a max player. Like, he had an all-NBA season. He's one of the 10-ish best players in the world. Like, that's a max guy as far as I'm concerned. History be damned. Like, present tense, that's a max player.
Well, yeah, and maybe this was just a bad matchup for him.
I do think it was a bad matchup.
That's true. I think we're kind of circling the tension point of this entire thing, which I think is Austin Reaves. Because I think if you want LeBron and Luka insurance, we saw Reaves do that in the regular season. And I do think if you're hoping to build track for a post-LeBron future, whenever that is, when it is just Luka, Reaves is the guy that the organization has obviously loved. They love finding him. He's basically the shining star of the past 5 years of team building for them. On the other hand, he is the key to getting a different type of player around all those guys. It's a little complicated because his contract is such a bargain, that salary matching. Like, you couldn't go out and trade Reaves for KD, for instance. But if you wanted to go big game hunting, or if you just wanted to get a veteran center that could run immediately, Reaves is the guy. And so I think the question is, would you be willing to talk about Reaves in any of these trades?
It'd have to be pretty juicy. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Reaves has put himself in a different category of consideration, where he's not just an also-ran on this roster. He's a really capable creator and scorer, even if he is one that maybe is best suited to being the second or third guy on a team like this. I think between the timeline and who he is as a shot creator and how well he plays in most instances alongside Luka and LeBron, that's not a player I'm eager to give up. Now, if you're going to bowl me over with a great big who makes this team feel more complete, that's a conversation we can have. But I think that's going to be a hard trade partner to find.
I'm open to trading Austin Reaves. I don't know why Austin Reaves is untouchable.
He's not untouchable. He's just really good.
No. He is really good. But if the right sort of, especially again, if Luka is my offense, this guy is expendable. He's an offense.
The goal is that he's not
player.
just your offense. If you have Austin Reaves, in theory, Luka doesn't have to be your whole offense, right? That's another really capable creator from the second side that can make a difference for you.
I know, but to me, that's getting cute, where it's oh, I have this luxury outside of Luka's creation. Meanwhile, playing these two together makes my defense so easy to target, man. That's why I'm just Austin Reaves can get traded. He can get traded, especially if it's going to make you more athletic, either on the wings or with a big.
This was an underrated part of the Kyrie-Luka duo as well, because Kyrie, just especially during his time as a Maverick, was just a really credible defender. Did his job, worked his ass off. Yes, he's small and he's just going to get worked over in some matchups, but he stood his ground in a way that Austin just frankly does not. So yes, the defensive concessions are very real.
But he's scrawny and just gets bowled over.
He tries, but in that way where he's more active than effective.
Yeah.
Kyrie at the game tonight, and LeBron at one point just outright pointed at him after dunking the ball. Thought that was pretty curious. Although Kyrie has been getting around on some of these games. I think he was at one of the Clippers games as well.
It's not that curious. It's LA.
Free agent this offseason.
Well, he's got a long recovery ahead of him. I don't think Kyrie is the answer to any of the Lakers' problems.
The flip side of that is what about KD? That's the other question here, where it's are you leaning into the now? Or are we saying
no?
Why no? You're not being a helpful assistant GM right now. Shooting things down.
I'm sorry.
Exchange of ideas.
There's no bad ideas except for the Lakers getting Kevin Durant. That is a bad idea.
Why?
I think the combination of one timeline, the whole point of getting Luka, is that you now have this long runway ahead of you that makes a player like Austin Reaves make a certain kind of sense, right? As a long-term fixture in the franchise, and make someone like Kevin Durant not. There's also just like dealing with Kevin Durant is a very unique undertaking that only certain kinds of franchises want to do. And I'll say the Lakers are probably historically one of the kinds of franchises that would. But now that they have Luka, why would you bother? Like, why would you take on that when you're already dealing with everything that's going on with this team?
So you watch what happened in Phoenix this year, and you're like, what the Lakers need is to hollow out their roster even more than it already is in order to bring KD in there.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if KD's necessarily disruptive. If anything, he's not disruptive enough and assertive enough in like what he wants. If anything, he's just kind of moody and sulking a lot while he's just trying to do his own thing.
Now I'm seeing what's happening here. Like, it's really, you're mounting a self-defense, and I appreciate the effort, but I don't know.
I just suggested that they might trade for a Hall of Famer, and you guys are like, no!
No, it's not that.
trading for a Hall of
Get
Famer.
outta
It's this
here.
Hall of Famer.
It's this team specifically. Like, they don't have some like deep reserve of, you know, the sort of role-playing pieces that we know you need. You know, like you need Naz Reid. You need Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, you need these guys. You need Jaden McDaniels. Like, you need these type of players to fill out a roster. People that you're like, yo, they're credible on both sides of the ball, right? The Lakers don't have that. So, like, what's bringing KD gonna do?
I just want to have a conversation. It's literally what a podcast is. But
okay.
I feel it.
Okay.
I don't like it for the Lakers, but, you know, maybe Houston will fall into that trap.
Yep. Anything else here? Oddly enough, this is a weird offseason of flux, even though the Lakers made their big move at the trade deadline. LeBron, as you guys mentioned, player option. Luka, you would assume that we're going to start seeing signs of whether or not he will long-term sign, or if something else will kind of upend that, or at the very least, like the Lakers are kind of on the clock to prove to him that there is a long-term runway here. Reaves, we should also mention, is extension eligible. And so as cheap as he is, as much as that is a big part of his kind of come up in his value across the league at this point, I do think he's going to get more expensive fairly quickly as a player option for 26, 27. So that's going to complicate things.
And we should say just more complicated mechanically to trade once he does sign that extension.
Yes. So there's actually a lot of wiggle room here, a lot of expirings. So they could get something done here, but you're right. It would kind of gut out their entire depth here. And as we saw, I mean, that was one of the main advantages for the Wolves. I will say, just to put a bow on this series, I do kind of like it that you can't easy bake a contender so quickly that you can make a trade deadline trade for Luka Doncic and still win a title. Like, there's too many good teams and too many good deep teams in this league that, like, you're not beating the Wolves because they go 8 deep with guys that are just quality up and down.
Yeah.
I think it's important more than ever to bring pieces in, not via trade, not via having to have given up a bunch of stuff to bring somebody in. Like, obviously drafting and a shrewd free agent signing and, you know, some undrafted guy who nobody thought that you unearthed and developed. Like, now more than ever, bro, like, you absolutely need to do this so that, you know, like a Boston who drafted their 2 core guys, you know, they bring in Derek White on a nice deal and all of this stuff. Like, when they have to pull the trigger on like a Porzingis or even bringing Al Horford back or any of this other stuff, it's like, we're not putting together like these insane packages that drastically change the nature of my team to do so, you know? And like the Lakers, they just don't have that at the moment in terms of a bunch of homegrown, homespun kind of stuff. Like, we love Austin Reaves, but like they needed more like Caruso's and stuff like that,
Right.
in order to have a roster that's more ready to made to contend.
This is why you see so many younger teams, especially, wait and wait and wait and wait before they make their big trade. Because once you make it, not only are you on the clock with whatever star you get, but the best assets you have, as you're talking about, Waz, are like, okay, now we have to improve our team materially every year with the 24th pick in the draft and whatever we can scrounge up using the mid-level exception. Like, that's kind of all we have to improve once we make that big jump. The difference with Luka is, one, the Lakers were already good, and two, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trade that just fell into their lap. And honestly, they were pretty upfront about that as it happened, of like, this is the kind of thing you just do and you work out the details later. And now we're seeing what work out the details looks like.
Rob Pelinka going to earn that extension, boys.
He certainly is going to earn that Executive of the Year honor, I'm sure.
All right, let's flip to the potential matchup awaiting the Wolves. Rockets, Warriors. Probably the dumbest game I've seen in a very long time.
Speak on it. Tell us about it.
So with 2:34 left to go in the third quarter, Warriors pulled their starters, and Waz tweets out, without any accompanying text, a link to a YouTube video entitled "Why Stir Fries Better in Restaurants and How to Do It at Home."
What did you learn, Waz?
That's my guy. That's my guy. Eric is my bro.
And in your defense, it was like Austin. It was Reed Shepherd, and just guys at the bottom of the Rockets bench didn't play Cam Whitmore, which I thought was just the shade of all shade, against frankly guys I had never heard of for Golden State Warriors. Brandon Key.
Yeah. We were like,
he's got to be a two-way guy.
Braxton Key, not Brandon Key. We were a Braxton Key layup away from this being a real game, and unfortunately, he missed like 7 layups.
And that's the other side of this dumbass game, is that the scrubs of Spencer, Braxton Key, yes, Moses Moody on an absolute tear, Kevin Knox on his 20th team in the past 10 years, and Trey Jackson Davis actually stormed back so much that they had to play their starters again. This is unbelievable, but ultimately the Rockets won this one. And so going back to Golden State.
This felt like the ultimate veteran, like, we're not trying this game. We're up 3-1 on the road. Like, we're going to let these young boys, they don't want their season to end. Good for them.
Yeah.
But they did not try. As evident, I think the Rockets had like 80 points at halftime.
They were running it up.
This was not a series in which the Rockets have been lighting it up. And at halftime, they had 80, which lets you know everything you needed to know about Golden State's effort and the amount of energy they were willing to exert to try to close this thing out. And then Steve Kerr matched the energy by clearing his bench with 16 minutes left in the game.
And it almost worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Steph had to put his braces back on. Buddy Hield had to play minutes at the end of this game for whatever reason.
He had to come back in. Starter Buddy Hield had to trot back into this game. That was uncalled for.
It's tough.
I want to give the Rockets some credit up front about what you're talking about, because I agree. Golden State came out flat. They did not come out with a ton of energy, but the Rockets did. And I think it was the kind of thing where the Warriors see the energy that the Rockets are exerting, and they're like, oh, no, I'm not. We don't need to do that from their perspective, and we don't want to participate in that tonight. And so it was this like initial show of force that almost to me warded a bunch of veterans off a little bit, where they then, like Steph's missing some of his early shots. Jimmy Butler, frankly, even energy level aside, just still looks quite injured. Very immobile, very idle out there, like in a way that I know we just saw him sky for a clutch rebound. I know we just saw him make huge plays in crunch time. His ability to do that over the course of a full game is still kind of suspect at this point. And so there's still some things to watch. There's still some concerning areas for the Warriors, I think, overall, including like their inability to beat a zone defense for long stretches, even as they were trying to be vaguely competitive in this game. It was not their best effort by any stretch.
I'll say this. I can't wait for the Rockets' inevitable trade that's going to happen. And not necessarily because of whomever they will get. And I'm sure we'll talk about that at length over the offseason. But just to see Amen Thompson do what he's doing now.
Holy fuck.
In the context of much higher level basketball. He had 5 steals in the first half. In 16 minutes of gameplay, he had 5 steals.
And how many of those were just ripping Steph at half court? Like, it was genuinely batty, like just watching him in that capacity. And I'll say watching him find himself offensively over these last 2 games, I think has been really reassuring for the Rockets and kind of inspiring as far as like his arc getting used to playoff basketball. We all know how Golden State is guarding him and the amount of space that they're giving him. And like, frankly, the way they're challenging him with disrespect, right? With that inattention. I think he's really seized that opportunity, and he's found ways to cut. He's found ways to get involved. He and the Rockets both in this game in particular, like ran so hard in transition that they didn't always get like easy fast break points out of it, but they created cross matches that then they could exploit. And then there'd be like Fred VanVleet wide open in the weak side corner. And now all of a sudden you're getting great shots, right? Like you're getting great consistent shots for an offense that in the half court is just not going to do that. And Amen, and really this team's collective speed and athleticism is what enables that.
Yeah, they came out like they didn't want their season to end, which sounds like, oh, they're professional athletes. Like, we've seen plenty of playoff series where, you know, they team down 3-0, game 4. It's just like, we didn't even try. You know, it's like
cough, cough, Miami Heat.
Exactly.
Cough, cough.
1, 2, 3 Cancun.
Yeah.
All day. Justin, your face froze on like a really funny facial expression just now.
But hey, Cancun can wait. Turks and Caicos can wait. Like these guys are ready to fight.
These dudes all season long, pretty much since last season, they play like a scrappy bunch, man. Like these guys play with a lot of pride. And that's what they came out and did in this game. And I'm happy for them. I'm proud of these young guys to be like, look, man, like we get it. Like the odds are definitely stacked against us, but that doesn't mean we're not going to come out and give it, 115%. And, they were rewarded with a nice, comfortable victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got two good examples of that back-to-back because Giannis also was ready to die on his shield in that tragic loss against the Pacers the other day, but he played his fucking ass off. And in this one, we saw Dylan Brooks having to play mediator for Amen Thompson because he almost bit Gary Payton II's head off. And then Brooks was the one who had to step in and tell him, no, don't get into a tussle, which was something. I don't think I've literally ever seen that. Speaking of Brooks, though, we do have to talk about one thing because it seemed like Steph's finger is becoming an issue. I don't know if you guys saw the photos of him getting on a plane. It looked pretty bogus.
It looked grotesque, honestly.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think the Rockets also saw it too, because apparently I want to say the Warriors broadcast maybe was pointing it out that the Rockets defenders were hitting Steph's hand as he was shooting it, perhaps intentionally. Kerr addressed it after the game. And he's like, yeah, I think that's what's going on. And actually, we need to weed this out of the league. Brooks basically had a non-answer about it, where he was kind of like, oh, if I had an ankle injury, I'd expect people to go at it. So I was like, I want to sidestep that one a little bit more. But I think if you have a concern about the Rockets, in addition to just the ferocity for the Warriors, in addition to the ferocity of the Rockets, it's just Steph's hand seems like it's hurt.
Like they desperately need him to be a more or less fully functional Steph Curry in order to overcome Houston's defense. And I think part of that too is another kind of takeaway I had from this game, in particular, in contrast to the previous ones. Like Curry when he's going, he kind of makes you forget who you are. Like he makes you forget your team identity because you're constantly scrambling to get after him, to the point that Ime Udoka was taking out some of the best lineups the Rockets have, taking size off the floor for the sake of like trying to match up with Steph. And you saw him go back to the two big a little bit more in this game. You saw him keeping Steven Adams on the floor even before the game got out of hand. Like things that really matter to the Rockets ecosystem, and let them play the way that they play. And if Steph can't shoot, we're all in the mud together. Then you're playing Houston Rockets basketball. And that's where things can get like if Steph's shot is off because of his hand and Jimmy Butler is hobbled because of his injury, I mean, that's about as dire a state as the Warriors offense could be in. We'll have to see if that's the case, coming into this next game. But that's a pretty tough sign. That's a pretty bad omen.
Steven Adams, another one of those centers, just bringing him back
rules
in the postseason. What if it was 100 Steven Adams versus one gorilla?
I just assumed Steven Adams was like in place of the gorilla, like 100 people against Steven Adams. How would they do?
Yeah, 100 Steven Adams might be able to do it for sure.
Okay. What if it was 100 Robs? 100 Robs versus the gorilla?
We're toast for one, guys.
I'm toast. I ain't going near no damn gorillas.
I already know I'm toast because, guys, I'm already on the playoff IR. I already broke my hand days into the playoffs, basically.
How did we just see this?
Yeah, I've been trying to fight through it. I've been trying to soldier through. I played
How
some
long
pickup
have you had
basketball.
this?
You injured yourself playing pickup basketball?
Yeah, I tried to play defense. It was a bad idea. Don't worry about it. It won't happen again. I promise you that. I'm not gonna stick my hand where it doesn't belong.
Danny Glover, I'm getting too old for this shit.
Seriously.
For the
So, yeah.
audio listeners, Rob just put within camera range his hand, which seems to be in a air cast, like just a
No,
full cast?
we're fully hard casted up at this point. But yeah, the gorilla is just gonna prey on 100 one-armed Robs. It's not gonna go great for us.
101 on Robs. It's tough.
it's not ideal.
Wow. Were we talking about like a break, or what do we got here? Do you want to?
Yeah, just a straight up break right down the middle finger.
So wait,
It's
you
not-
gotta have a
bad.
surgery?
No. It's thankfully very stable, but it needs to be immobilized in a way that, it's not so friendly for us
Insane.
typing professionals.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
out here
insane.
trying to take notes, and it's not going well.
Wow. I didn't get that injury report, so I was unaware. But
Well,
look at you
we
podding through the pain.
We didn't want the
The playoff
Vegas lines
odds
to
about.
move on it. When people find out about your injuries, the bets swing, the markets change. We don't want to have that kind of effect on the world.
Rob is the Viet Cong of podcasters.
I did not say that. That's Big Wosny Lambre who said that.
Now.
Oh, Waz, you want to, before we go, anything about stir fry? Is it better in restaurants or?
Dude, yeah. So there's a method that they use at the Chinese spots called velveting, which will tenderize pretty much any meat that you throw in there, whether it's chicken breast or even, a more lean beef cut. Like you use egg whites, a little bit of baking soda, some cornstarch, and there's like alkaline in obviously the baking soda and the egg whites, and it like tenderizes this shit when you marinate it in that mix. And that's why you get that smooth, like really juicy texture from restaurant quality chicken and broccoli, beef and broccoli, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, watch that tutorial. You will learn how to velvet your protein for beef and broccoli or chicken and broccoli.
That does sound wonderful. I have a counter proposal though, which is, go shop at small businesses. Keep your local Chinese restaurants open.
Make sure you keep going and eating over there for sure.
Mm.
It's just I just like to do just to test myself. Like, could I make a banging, beef and broccoli at the house? And it's just fun like that.
To be determined.
Your new YouTube series, Waz Cooks.
I'm
Velvet
ready.
the hell out of shit.
I'm
would
ready.
watch. Would absolutely watch.
I'm ready.
All right. We'll talk to some mucky mucks and see if we
Tell
can get that
Uncle
off the
Bill
ground.
I'm ready.
On that note, we'll be back over the weekend. Thank you to Isaiah Blakely. Thank you to Ben Cruz. We'll talk to you next time. Must be 21 plus and present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.